Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, for holding this important hearing. Public safety in Native American communities is a complex and a serious issue. It's been a top priority for the tribes in Wyoming, the Eastern Shoshone and the Northern Arapaho tribes for a long time. Back in the 111th Congress, I co-sponsored the bill that became the Tribal Law and Order Act. This act was intended to address certain deficiencies in the Indian country criminal justice system. It established the Indian Law and Order Commission to study and make recommendations to further improve the system. Today we're going to hear the Commission's findings and the recommendations. More importantly, we're going to hear from the federal and tribal officials on where we should go from here. I want to express my appreciation to Affie Ellis, who is here with us today and will be testifying in the second panel, and to Ivan Posey, who had also been involved for considerable contributions to the Commission's work. Affie served as the Commissioner and traveled to some of the most remote locations in this country to hear from Indian people. Ivan Posey was scheduled to testify today, but he experienced flight delays. He served on the Commission's Tribal Advisory Committee. So thank you to both of my fellow Wyoming citizens and to the Commission for all of the hard work on this report. I look forward to the testimony today. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. Ms. Ellis, I'm just thinking about what Ivan Posey has been working on, council member for the Eastern Shoshone tribe. He talked about stronger preventive services, suicide prevention, that all these services be provided for Indian youth. Then these services will serve to reduce the unacceptably high numbers of Native youth entering the justice system. And I'm just wondering how you think preventive services are going to assist in reducing the number of Indian youth in the justice system.
Thank you so much, Senator Barrasso, Mr. Vice Chairman. Our report talks about some of the programs that are existing at Wind River, and some of them have been award-winning. But again, back to my point about grant-based funding, too often you get a great program up and running, it runs out of money, and then it ceases to exist until another grant opportunity arises. We heard that at Wind River, and we heard that across the country with people we talked to. One thing that our report emphasizes, though, is there are some solutions that just need to be community-driven, driven by tribes and organizations. And I think Councilman Posey's testimony speaks to that. He talks about things that he is working on and efforts that the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho tribes are trying to tackle on a reservation basis. So to the extent that the federal government and state governments can support those efforts, we think is important, but ultimately those need to be community-driven.
Yeah, there's anything in your testimony you talked about, what you heard as you traveled was things that the people locally said, things that we did rather than what the government did. One of the highlights of the Commission the report points to a lack of federal judges and federal courthouses. I mean, you made the point about how there was money to build a courthouse but not money to staff, and I mean, just some amazing inconsistencies of a bureaucracy. I'm wondering about the barriers for criminal justice in Indian country, specifically relating to federal judges, courthouses, and our U.S. Attorney for Wyoming, Kip Crofts, also shared that view in his written testimony submitted to the Commission. So, Ms. Ellis, can you talk about how you think this lack of federal judges and courthouses affects the Wind River Reservation?
Thank you again for that question, Vice Chairman. In Wyoming, as you know, and everybody in this room is very familiar with, I know you come from large states with large land bases and you're in the car for hours and hours driving just to get from one town to another. And that scenario becomes particularly difficult when you're talking about a place like Wind River where I think it's about a 3 or 4.5 hour drive from the Wind River Reservation to Cheyenne, Wyoming, where the Article III judges are housed. U.S. Attorney Kip Crofts in Wyoming has suggested that we start moving more these court proceedings closer to Indian country, and our report discusses the use of perhaps using some magistrate judges in various roles to help ease the burden on some of these court functions. We also talk about a situation where federal court proceedings have actually been held, criminal court proceedings held in Indian country. I'm proud to say that the Navajo Nation has been one of those areas. So we think that it just makes sense. We didn't do any empirical data saying, it'll save you this much money if you move a court proceeding closer to Indian country, but we think it makes sense. And in the long run, it adds a little bit more to the institutional legitimacy as people are able to go to these trials, hear what these people did, understand what happened in the courtroom. Right now, that's very foreign. People don't have the resources on reservations to travel to Cheyenne, for example, to see what's going on down there. So it's a bit of a mystery, and I think it would just help increase the transparency of what happens in these proceedings when we move them closer to Indian country.